Welcome to another great episode of Create.Learn.Implement, aka CLI podcast, with me, your host, Coyetta. I hope you guys are having an amazing day because we have the lovely Jasmine Womack on today's episode. Jasmine is a writing consultant who helps high-performing leaders, professionals, entrepreneurs, and executives connect with others, package their expertise, maximize their message in a book, and help them use their book to grow and expand their business. And let me tell you, it's a new way of looking at how writing could change your story and how sharing your story could change your life. So stay tuned for Jasmine Womack on the other side. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. Like, how do I record an episode? How do I get my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now Anchor can match you with great sponsors too. So you can get paid to podcast. So when I thought about starting a podcast, I had no idea how it worked. I don't know how I came across Anchor, but I did, and it was free and it was 100% easy to use. And I love to use it to connect to my audience. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. Do you believe social media is going to be the death of your business? Or do you have trouble showing up? Well, let me show you how to use social media strategically to grow your business so you can work less while increasing your income with my 6-week group coaching program. The doors are officially opened and I only have room for 5 women who are ready to stop guessing how to monetize their social media, create a no-brainer system that works without her, show up for her business, and own her journey by taking back her time. You'll walk away with a clear game plan on how to accelerate your online business, receive concrete strategies, and actionable tactics to help your business thrive. Hit the link in the show notes to sign up now. So my beautiful audience, welcome into another episode of Create.Learn.Implement. I have the lovely Jasmine Womack here. She is a writing slash self-publishing coach. The struggle I've had to have this lovely lady on today. I'm so happy to have you, Jasmine. Welcome in. And can you actually tell the audience a little bit about who Jasmine is?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, welcome. Not welcome, but hello, everyone. And thank you for having me on today. First and foremost, I am a child of God, a daughter of God, and I literally pray about everything in my life, right?
Yes.
And so I think that's important to say because my spiritual relationship and my spiritual path guides everything that I do as a wife, as a mother, and as a coach.
Yes.
So I have to say that. But in my career, I'm a writing consultant and I work with emerging coaches to help them establish themselves as thought leaders by writing a best-selling book. And then I also help them to turn their books into premium priced courses and coaching programs. So that's the work that I do. And I absolutely love doing it.
I love that. So tell me a little bit about First of all, I love that faith is your guide, because I'm the same way. You need that compass, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about high school Jasmine. What was she like?
Well, I've been in leadership my whole entire life. So high school Jasmine was in all the accelerated classes. I was in the gifted program, took all the accelerated classes, the AP classes, but I was also a musician. So I was in the marching band. And here in Atlanta, where they filmed Drumline, I was, had some cameo parts in Drumline. So I
Oh,
was in a high-stepping high school marching band, and I was the drum major for 3 years. So, so my first year as drum major, I was the only female. And then my junior and senior year, I was the head drum major, and I was one of two um, females on the squad. So um, I've I've literally been in leadership since high school. Like our band size was anywhere between, I think, 125 and 200 in any given year. And so, we would always have to assist the band director or run the practices, in his absence or when he had meetings. We have to go to competitions, make sure that everybody was on point, like literally in
yeah.
leadership. Remember
So
when we would have to do like the county exhibition, which is where our bands would get rated. And one time the band director was not there, and we literally had to run and manage everything. There were band parents there, but we had to run and manage everything from the buses to making sure the band was on point in the stands, on the field.
yeah.
And we got, superior ratings that year. And so I'm used to working with groups, large groups. Done it since high school.
Yeah. Wow, that is pretty major. So that makes sense for you to naturally be in a leadership role in your adult life, because it's always been that way. Um, you know,
Right.
how did you,
Always.
oh, that's amazing. How did you get into this role of writing or being a self-publishing coach? Like, how did that come about?
Well, I don't consider myself a self-publishing coach. I like to, that's one of the phrases I guess I'll use because that's something that people tend to identify the most. But
Yeah.
what we do in my company is so much more than self-publishing. Like we help authors build brands and change their lives by creating generational wealth, right?
Yes.
And once you have the power to create and you know how to create it, you can never go back to being who you were. And
Yeah.
you can never, you will always have options. Like someone will never be able to tell you what you can and can't do because you know that you have the power to create it.
Yeah.
You literally have the power to create a book or create a course or create some money if you want to. I was saying to someone the other day, I was like, listen, you guys learned this cash injection strategy, use it. You're able to help clients, but you're also able to benefit from the fruits of your labor. I'm like, if you want some new furniture, put it together, go make some sales and make it happen. Like you literally can create what you want. Like,
Absolutely.
and it's just really a mindset shift. So the way that I got into it was that I've always been a writer. Ever since elementary school, I would, write stories, write poems, and, would win writing contests or was always doing something where I was writing and speaking, looking back on it.
Yeah.
So in high school, we had these plays called Lady M's Cup of Soul. In elementary school, it was writing contest. In college, it was my participation in school-wide, talent shows. And I was always asked by people on the staff. I'm a graduate of the Fort Valley State University. It's an HBCU in South Georgia.
Yes.
And for those of you all who may not know what HBCU is, it's a historically Black college university.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always asked by faculty members to speak on panels or to, like write some synopsis of something abstract and present my thoughts. And, like I was doing it. And so I wanted to write a book, but I was scared and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to write about.
Yeah.
So it was a guy that I was dating at the time. Him and his friends, they were writing books, but it was great for a college student, but it wouldn't make it in the real world, right? Like in the world of traditional publishing. And so I knew, first of all, I'm like, if they can do it, I know I can. and then the second thing I was thinking about, I'm like, but when I release my book, I want it to be a professional quality. I don't want it to look homemade. I don't want it to look cheap. I don't want it to look self-published. So it actually took me about 10 years to actually write and self-publish my first book. I went through a marriage, went through a divorce shortly afterwards, and ended up writing a book about a lot of the lessons that I learned when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
With the goal of helping other college-age women make wise decisions when it comes to their spirituality, their relationships, love and platonic, and networking, and their money and their health.
Yeah.
And so it took me about 10 years to write that book and publish it. And that was just really me procrastinating and also overthinking the process. I had a horrible habit of editing as I wrote.
Yeah.
Because while I was writing, I wanted it to be perfect because I had begun my career as an English teacher. And so I just could not get past writing it and it not sounding great. And so I was really my worst critic, and it caused me to procrastinate for years until I was at home on bed rest with my second child, pregnant with my son. And I said, you know what? I have to have something to show for this time. And I'm just going to stop fooling around and finish my book. And literally, it was a mindset shift. Once I made the decision to finish, I said, I'm not going to edit it as I write. I'm just going to literally get my thoughts out. I had my outline. I knew what I wanted to talk about. I'm just going to sit here and write what it is I know. And that's what I did. And when I did that, I went from struggling for 10 years to finishing my first book in 2 weeks. And then I published it several months later. And that was like literally the beginning of the rest of my life.
There's so much to unpack in that. First of all, what college guy is writing a book? Like that just kind of shows the people that you were around. Like you got to surround yourself with the right people. So I love that was even a thought process that you guys were on. That's amazing. And people often think, when you're doing something, oh yeah, she just did it. But your process took 10 years. So it's just to say that these things can take time, even without procrastination.
Oh yeah, I would say that it took 10 years because I had to develop into the person I was writing about, right? It was one of those issues or instances of, I was still in my late 20s at the time or whatnot, but it was one of those instances in which the content that you're writing about is so rich, but you have to operate in integrity. Yeah. So it's like, what to do, but you're not doing it. Yeah. And so I couldn't sit up writing a book about, celibacy or the importance of it, and I wasn't being celibate, if that makes sense. Like I wanted to be in integrity and actually speak from a perspective of experience and not theory. So yes, after I went through a period of celibacy and actually married my husband after 2 months of dating, now I can talk about this. Right. And I can talk about the power that dedicating yourself to God will have in your life, because I'm not just writing from theory, I'm writing from experience. Yes. So it wasn't that it necessarily took time to write the book. It was that I had to develop into the person that I needed to be to share the message, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. And people don't consider that. It's kind of like not necessarily, I don't know if it's necessarily operating outside of integrity, but just kind of growing into the person as you're writing. So by the time it's the end, you're already that person.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. So why is it important for us to be able to tell our stories? Why should we, use our stories to make us some money?
Well, that's a twofold question.
Yeah.
Why is it important for us to tell our stories? First and foremost, stories are what makes the world go round, and stories are what connects us to others. Like, stories transcend the test of time.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that if you go back to the beginning of history was communicated through the telling and illustration of story.
Yeah.
That's why you can go back to civilizations now and they told their stories through paintings and sculptures on the wall. Families and tribes would, share their history through the power of storytelling. So if you talk about in 2022, when there's a lot of just, I won't say fakery, like, but like you can't really tell who from who, right?
Yeah.
One thing that you can't make up is your story.
Right.
Like, you either know it or you don't. It's either going to be consistent or it's not. But it has the power to literally change someone's life. And that's because when we tell our stories, others can see themselves inside of our testimonies. Others can see themselves inside of our triumphs,
yes,
especially when they are going through a trying time. So it allows people to connect because it's not, about gender. It's not about race or any of those things. It's about the experience. And sharing your story allows people to see you and allows you to see people, because again, you're connecting through experience. And it's like, listen, I had that same or a similar experience. I appreciate you for sharing that, because you sharing what you said helped me to change my perspective.
Yeah.
So it literally has the power to change someone's mind and shift someone's emotions. And that's why I feel that it's so, so, so important.
Absolutely. I love that. So in your experience working with business owners, male and female, trying to get their stories out there, how have we compromised our stories?
Well, the way that I work with my clients, we don't compromise our stories at all. Like,
hey, all right.
Like, your story is your story. Like, and if somebody has a problem with it, then it's not your responsibility to curtail or to, alter what you're saying. Like, the responsibility isn't on you. The responsibility is on them to find out and discover why. What about what you're saying is making them trigger? Like, that's a them problem. It's not a you problem.
How historically, we allow other people to tell our stories and frame the narrative for us. So what you're saying is you're not allowing them to do that.
Not when you tell your own. Absolutely not, because you're telling your own. Like, when you tell your own, you take away someone else's power to tell yours.
Yes.
Because nobody can tell your story better than you. Now, in terms of actually turning your story into currency or into money, this is when you have to begin to shift from only talking about you and what happened to you to understanding who you're targeting, who your market is, what their problems are, the solutions that they need, and providing the solution through also sharing story. So that's the way that you begin to turn it into currency. It's just like, for instance, if you read any type of business books, right?
Yeah.
You can sit and talk at somebody and give a whole bunch of strategy, but that's not what's going to make it stick. What's going to make it stick is telling the story along with the strategy, like telling the story, where they were, how they got to where they are, and the lessons that they learned. Like, that's what's going to make it stick. Absolutely. Because if you encounter something similar in your business, you reflect, oh, I remember back when I read this book, this person went through this, and this was the outcome. I might want to avoid doing that, right?
Right.
And so oftentimes it's not that people remember the tips, tools, or strategies. They're going to remember the story. They're going to remember how the story made them feel. They're going to remember how they perceived that you felt in the moment through reading your story.
Right.
You follow me? So for me, it's about combining story with strategy. So that way, it's not about you, but you can communicate to your reader and provide solutions and make it stick through storytelling.
So we are talking marketing here.
Yes, it's all marketing.
All
It's all
marketing.
marketing.
Okay, so tell me, what is the benefit of or what are some of the benefits of self-publishing?
Oh, the benefits are absolutely amazing. For me, I'm always going to advocate for self-publishing, especially for newer authors. I have worked with authors who were traditionally published. I've worked with coaches who went the traditional publishing route.
Mm-hmm.
And 9 times out of 10, they end up hating it. Like, so with self-publishing, it really cuts out the middleman. You do maintain control over the project management of your project, but you get to keep all of your rights and all of your royalties. So no one else will own the rights to your book. You'll own it.
Yeah.
And you keep 100% of your royalties, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the things that I love about self-publishing. In addition to that, many of the authors that I've worked with that ended up going a traditional publishing route, like even with a publishing contract, receiving 6-figure advances, they still ended up having to do their own marketing.
Oh.
And my thing, and for most, it's like that, particularly if you're not a big name. Like, you'll have to go, hire your own publicist and literally do your own marketing. And I'm like, if you have to do all of your own marketing anyway,
mm-hmm.
and you still have to hire the publicist, then you might as well just self-publish the book and keep all of your royalties.
Yeah, true.
That's how I look at it, as opposed to giving someone else or a company ownership of your book, ownership of the name, the brand, or whatnot. And you getting the advance, but other than that, that could be pretty much it, and you still have to come out your own pocket to do your own marketing. Like, you can just do it yourself.
Okay, do it yourself.
You do it yourself, and you build up your audience.
Yes.
You do it yourself, you build up your sales. And so that way, if a traditional publisher does contact you, now you have, you have data.
Yeah. To
back up, your demand. You have data to back it up.
Absolutely. I love that. How do we, I think you mentioned this, a little bit earlier. How do we how do we take this book and turn it into a generational wealth system that's benefiting, generations over and over and over?
Oh, absolutely. Well, you got to understand that it doesn't stop at the book.
Right.
It starts with the book. All right. It's literally, the book is the beginning. And the reason why I say that is because your book, when you're writing your book, you're going to be able to really hone into who your ideal reader is, the demographics that you're targeting. You're going to have to really fine tune your messaging so that you can understand what type of information, what type of examples to put into your book. Of course, when you begin marketing your book, you have to know all this information so that you can appropriately market it, right? So that the right people purchase your book. So it's not just enough to just say, hey, I wrote a book. Like, it needs to have an intention behind it.
Yeah.
So that way, I've met many authors who feel like they have a marketing problem. And I'm like, no, you don't have a marketing problem. You have a messaging problem.
Right.
Because you began writing in general anyway. you began writing to anybody who wanted to read your book anyway. And if your book is all story just about you, and if it's written to anybody and everybody and your messaging is off, then your marketing efforts are going to be in vain as well. And you're not going to be able to successfully turn your book into sustainable income down the road.
Right.
So
right.
the book is the beginning, because it's going to help you fine tune all of that. And you're able to create a passive income product that you create one time. You can literally make money off of it for the rest of your life, as long as you continue to promote it and sell it.
Okay.
Perfect. And once you have those things in place, the foundational things, then it's quite easy to turn it into a course or some type of what I call, an affluent author offer, that comes after the book.
Yeah.
Because when people read your book and you've helped them to get a quick win or help them to get some type of enlightenment or understanding, they're going to want more. And you have to have that more for them. The more should not be a t-shirt. It should not be a mug or some other little trinket. It needs to be something substantial to help them reach the ultimate goal that they desire in their life or in their business.
I love that. In a recent Forbes article, I read that you were considered the Harriet Tubman of publishing. So can you dive more into that for me? Like, what was that like for you to make that correlation between you and Harriet Tubman?
Actually, I did not. That was something that one of my former students referred to me as. Like,
yes,
my students, they call me different names. Like, they call me Coach J-Dub. They call me Janice. She referred to me as the Harriet Tubman of self-publishing. And they'll call me other monikers or whatnot as they, work with me. But for me, I was honored, but I also knew what my intention was. Now, of course, we work, with all creeds and colors. But, my primary audience is and has been Black women. And because I'm a Black woman, and and I just think that for me, I thought back to how my grandmother had to stop school when she was in 6th grade. Like, she didn't have the luxury of going through middle school, graduating from high school, going to college. Right. Her educational options were limited. I think back to how in this country, in the United States, a Black person would be killed if it was discovered that they had the skill of literacy. Like, how historically in the United States, a Black person could be killed if it was found that they knew how to read and how to write. And, despite the horrific things that, happened to Black Americans during the transatlantic slave trade and the whole, during that period of time, our people never received any type of therapy or anything to decolonize us in our minds, if so to speak. So traces of what happened to us centuries ago is still seen today. It's still seen today, just because we didn't have the opportunity, just because we were not able, we were intentionally kept illiterate. Intentionally. So much was kept from us. So much was put in, like, it was even as early, I think, as the 1940s in this country, and I could be wrong, but 1940s, 50s, and even in the 60s in the United States, it was illegal for Black people to go into certain libraries. Couldn't check out books. So it's like, what is it that's so powerful about information
Right.
What is it so powerful about a book that other people bent their backs to keep from us?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's why it's important.
Absolutely.
So like we don't have to just wait to sit at other people's table. Right now, in this day and age, we can create our own tables. And it's our responsibility to share the information that we've learned, because it was kept from us for so long. Like, we're just now starting to catch up.
Right.
Just now starting to catch up. And so for me, like, that's why it's important. So we work with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have Black clients, white clients, whatnot. We work with anybody and everybody, you know, but we just cannot turn a blind eye at, you know, the travesty that happened to Blacks in America for centuries.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I'm so passionate, not just about sharing our stories and talking about the traumas that happen. We are so much more than our traumas. We are our triumphs. Yes. And we have an opportunity to share how we've triumphed.
Absolutely.
It's about sharing information to help the next person, not just about talking about yourself and all the things that happen to you.
Absolutely. So if I, Jasmine, I'm like, you know, I would like to write a book. Where should I start in this process?
Well, the first thing you have to start is by identifying what you want to talk about and why.
Yeah. The what and why.
Like, what do you want to talk about and why? Like, a lot of people say they want to write books, but then when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, they haven't even sat down to think enough about what they want to write about. Like, you can't start the process expecting someone else to tell you what you need to write your book about.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very unprofessional, and honestly, it's somewhat immature. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to repeat it again. You cannot start the writing process expecting someone else to tell you what you should write about.
Right.
When you say that you want to write a book, you need to already come knowing what you want to write about and why you want to write it. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't gained that level of clarity, then you have to go do some soul searching and some experience searching and get clear on that for you. Because it's not just about writing a book, it's about building a business.
Yes.
And one of the things that I see too many people coming with is that they're expecting someone else to think for them. I can give you all the strategy in the world. I can give you the whole entire blueprint, the roadmap, but I can't think for you and I can't do the work for you. Mm-hmm. You have to know what you're doing, why you want to do it, and then you have to have the actual discipline to implement it and bring it to fruition.
Absolutely. Do you think that most people, from your experience, do you think that most people have it in mind that they want this to be a business, or they just want to write a book to tell their story?
I think it depends on who you're talking to.
Okay.
It definitely depends on the audience.
Yeah.
You know, there are segments of people that they're like, listen, I'm not trying to write my story. I'm trying to position myself as a thought leader. And those are the people that we work with, right? Okay. And then there are those, they just want to share their story. They just want to put it into a book. They don't really care about selling it. They don't care about building a business from it. They just want to talk about the things that happen to them. So it just really depends on, it just really depends on the audience. I think that there are plenty of people that can, align with both categories. It's just about who you're actually talking to.
Yeah. So that is a key element. You have to know who you're talking to.
You got to know who you're talking to. Yeah. Like, I don't think that most people think about it like this. It's just who you're talking to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you're in an entrepreneurial space, or if you're talking to, a company of CEOs, they're not trying to write a memoir. They're trying to establish themselves as thought leaders so they can go get speaking engagements and bring in passive income. Mm-hmm.
So we got to know our audience always.
You have to know your audience always. Or, you may be speaking to someone that they might be an aspiring entrepreneur and they might feel like writing a book is a great idea and they just want to talk about the things that happen to them. Yeah. I've met people who do that too. Like they just write the book. They're not interested in learning about sales. They're not interested in learning about marketing. As long as they write the book, they feel content. And so for them, it stops at the book. And I've also worked with authors who are already coaching or they're coaching in some manner. And they're like, they from the gate want to turn their book into more, and so they're not content with only writing the book. They do want to learn about marketing. They do want to learn about sales. And they recognize that that might be a skill set or information set that they don't already have. And that they either need to learn it on their own or pay someone to teach them something that they don't know.
So what are 3 elements of a great book?
That's a great question. The 3 elements of a great book is definitely the story.
Yep.
The strategy. So telling your story, also incorporating some how-to, some information in there. Yeah. Not just talking about the what, but actually giving people steps to implement.
Yes.
Right. And then making sure that it's coherent. And I would add a fourth, it's got to be edited. So when I say coherent, meaning that your ideas are sequential. Yes. That your content is easy to follow, which is going to make it easier to stick, and that you're not just bouncing around from topic to topic and it makes no sense. So that's what I mean by coherent. And then, of course, I guess editing is a part of coherence, because if you want your reader to understand what you're saying, they need to be able to read it and not have to stop every moment to try to figure out what you're saying, because it's punctuation and grammatical errors in your book.
Right. Okay, so you heard it first. Now, how do we deal with writer's block, and where would you consider the hardest part of writing? Is it in the beginning, the middle, or the end?
I don't necessarily agree with the concept of writer's block, although I know that it exists. Yeah. And the reason why I say that I don't agree with the concept of writer's block, because writer's block, or what's referred to as writer's block, normally is an emotional or mental blockage. Okay. And so what I find is that when someone feels unqualified, or when fear creeps into the space. Yes. And I don't even say unqualified. Normally there's some type of doubt about what you're writing. Yeah. Or you're questioning what you're writing because you're scared of how other people are going to perceive it. And so because you go into this space of people pleasing, you question whether or not you should share what you want to share. Yeah. I've often, times seen clients who claim they have writer's block. It's not even that they have writer's block, it's that they're scared. Right. And their fear is preventing them from moving forward to write. And then we've had those instances in which people are writing about situations that they haven't fully made it through. Like you could be writing about overcoming a relationship, but you're still in the thick of it and you keep going back. Yeah. You don't have writer's block. You have a behavior block. Like it's your choices. Like you can't
at the end of that story yet.
Right. You can't, completely write about something because you haven't made it through it. Right. And so it's like your brain is fighting with itself because, again, one thing, but you're doing something else. All right. And then you go into that space of people pleasing. Well, I don't want this person to read it because you know what you're doing. Yeah. So it's not even really a writer's block. It's fear or it's a character issue. Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it. It's not a writer's block, especially when you're telling your own story. It's hard to have writer's block, I would say, right? Right. Yeah. Okay. So
Jasmine, you are a mother, you are a business owner, you are a wife, you wear so many different hats. What is your self-care routine? What do you do when you're feeling stressed or you need to get away for a little bit? What is your routine there?
Well, I just recently started taking every Friday off to have time for myself because the weekends are not restful for me. My
Yeah.
family's home, my husband's home. I don't get time to rest. So I take Fridays off. And so in terms of self-care really isn't a place that I go. It's a way of being.
Mm,
So for me, like I'm here now, but my housekeepers are here.
yeah.
They're here in my home. They're doing things that need to be done, but I'm paying them so I don't have to do it. That's self-care because
Yes.
I'm able to alleviate my anxiety. I'm able to save my time and do other things and still have a clean house, which matters to me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I ask for help when I need it. Those types of things are self-care. And of course, I do take time every day to take care of myself, literally working out, reading my devotionals in the morning, and I'm getting back on getting back on track with my journaling. So for me, self-care, like you can go on a vacation and they'll still come back drained and miserable. So self-care, it's not something that you do. It's literally a way of being. It's a lifestyle. And it's understanding that you can't do everything by yourself. So you have to create a life and create habits that decrease your stress and bring you joy.
Love that. Good way to end. Miss Jasmine Womack, where could we find you if we're looking to, publish our, books, tell our stories, work with you? Where can we find you?
Definitely visit my website, jasminewomack.com. Come connect with me on Instagram at the Jasmine Womack. And a great place to get started would be publishedandpaidbook.com.
Love that. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so glad we finally got to get together.
And likewise.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Okay.
Thank you. You too.
You're welcome. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another great episode. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, as all these things help to keep the podcast alive. Take care. Until next time.